So let's first understand what an SVG even is. So if we go to w3schools.com, we can go to this SVG tutorial. So SVG stands for Scalar Vector Graphics. And we can actually scroll down and we can see an example right in this SVG example, right? So this is it. So it's just kind of this tag where it has very specific parameters for defining what an image looks like. And the reason that SVGs are so cool is because no matter how big or small you make them, they're always going to have the exact same quality because they are scalable. You know how, like, if you take an image like this one, let me view this. You know, if we take this image, right, and I make it super, super big, the bigger I make it, the worse the quality gets. With an SVG, you don't ever have to deal with that because you define exactly what it'll look like no matter what size. And what we could do is we can actually make our own SVG sort of like this, right? And if you're in the W3 schools, if you try for yourself, you can see my first SVG over here. And I could change this. I could say the fill is now blue. We'll run and it now turns blue. I could say the stroke is black, right? And it turns black. So there's a ton of different parameters and functions that we can do to make an SVG look a certain way, right? So if we're back in our VS Code, we can even go up to IMG, new file, example.svg. We can code some SVG in here. So we'll do SVG, XML and S equals, and this is just versioning stuff, HTTP, www.w3.org/2000/SVG. Give it a width of 500, a height of 500. These need to be in strings. And then we'll have a closing SVG tag. And here we'll make some text. We'll say fill equals black. Hi, you decoded this. \text. Like this, real minimal SVG like this. And then if we go to extensions, we can look up SVG. And there's a couple of different SVG viewers and SVG previewers. I forget which one's the best one. Let's go with this one for now. And now what we can do is go back to our SVG, open up our command palette, type in SVG, preview SVG. I'm going to install this SVG preview. I'm going to go ahead and hit install. Now we can come back to our SVG, open up SVG preview, open preview to the side, and it looks blank. So let's fix that. We'll say X equals 0, Y equals 15. X equals 0, Y is 15. Fill is black. Text. Okay, that looks good. Preview the SVG, and boom. We can see this little hi, your browser decoded this on the side. Now, this is just the SVG, and this, storing all this on chain, is not a URI, right? Our NFT needs a URI, right? It needs this string. This is not a URI. This is an SVG. But what we can do is we can actually convert this into a URI that our browser can understand. And we're going to pass all the data we need in the URL of our browser. So it's going to sound really bizarre, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to CD into that image folder, and we're going to run a command called base64. Now, not all computers have this. You can check by doing base64 -- help. If you don't have this, don't worry. You can just copy paste what I'm going to be doing. But we can actually base64 encode everything in here. And what I can say is I could do base64 -I, which means we're going to input a file, and we're going to pass in this example.svg. We'll see we get this weird thing as an output. So now if we take this weird thing, and I'm going to actually create a little README to make some notes here. So this weird output is the base64 encoded example.svg we just created. Now at the start of this, we can add a beginning piece to tell our browser that this is an SVG. So I'm going to say data : image / SVG plus XML base64, comma, like this. And if I copy this whole thing, oops, sorry, this should be a semicolon here. If I copy this whole thing and I paste it into any browser, we're going to get this, hi, your browser decoded this. So basically what we did was we encoded this SVG file and put this data image SVG plus XML base64. So our browser knew how to decode it and then just passed the entire image through our browser URL. And boom. So we can also do this with images. So if I go back to the repo associated with this lesson, go to images, dynamic NFT, we go to happy SVG, happy.svg. We go down to code instead of preview and see the exact code here, right? So we create this view box. Oops. We create some circles. We create this path, which is how we just kind of draw lines. And I can copy this whole thing, paste it into my image. So I'm going to say, oops, image. I'm going to do happy SVG, happy.svg, paste it in here. If I pull up the preview, I see the preview is a happy. Now what I can do is I can do base 64-I, happy.svg. We get this output. I can copy this output. Let me go over to the README, paste it. I'm going to add this beginning piece to it and then copy this whole thing. Go back to my browser, paste it in, and boom, we passed all of this data to generate this SVG right in the URL. And this looks like, yes, it does, a token URI, right? So now instead of using an IPFS hash for our token URI, we can actually 100% on chain use this SVG thing. And because this SVG is basically code on chain, we can update it and interact with it to make it do whatever we want it, right? For example, if our happy SVG, we could say, okay, if somebody has 10 tokens, right, they get 10 circles or something like that, right? We could do whatever we want with this. So let's learn how to make one of these SVGs on chain, and we'll make it so that our NFT is actually dynamic, right? So that our NFT can change, it can evolve, it could grow, whatever we want to do with it. And then at the end, we'll finally learn what this ABI and code packed stuff is, right? And this is going to be incredibly important for those of you looking to go the extra mile, looking to go really far, and looking to become really advanced smart contract developers.